Welcome to the Shared Practices Podcast, Season 6, live, here with our co-host, Dr. George Hariri.
Hey, everyone. So nice to have such a live audience today. You know, I think it's funny because we've never had intro music on our show, and that is something I've heard every once in a while, but I'm not a big fan.
I like it. The problem is I care too much and I can't commit. That's the problem.
No, I think we're no intro music, right? It's the same thing every time. Okay, I've heard this 1,000 times. Fast forward.
No, I get like a hit of dopamine when it's like the right show. Like I like some of it because then I'm excited for the show. It's just like branding. It just feels good.
All right. Well, you guys have something to look forward to. Future intro music
Someday.
That is not this. No, but Richard, he records with this like really obnoxiously complicated little thing. And so, it has these buttons. I'm like, well, Richard, if you're going to record with this obnoxious thing,
it just sounds
gotta
good.
use the buttons.
We're going to get you a thing and then you can be obnoxious.
Oh, if you give me one of those things, I'm going to be mixing it up and like knowing them well.
Buttons?
Anytime somebody makes a joke, they're going to get the...
Oh my goodness. We'll single-handedly bring our podcast to its knees. We'll track our stats and libsyn and it's just like thank you.
Everyone signs off.
I can't do it.
Oh yeah, it's happening. If you give me one of those, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do it.
All right.
George is here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, man. It's been fun.
It's been really good.
Yeah, it's our last night, and so we got to record for our show.
We're like, oh crap, I guess we should do some podcasting. We've done nothing but play board games, visit dental offices, eat good food, and then play with my kids and do a little bit of hiking.
Which is a successful trip.
It was a great trip.
So, Richard, what are we going to talk about today?
You threw out something offhanded at the end of a previous episode, which is always good to pick up for next time, which was patient financing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and how you'd been burned. But then you told me the burn off air, and I'm like, that's not that bad of a burn. Like,
no, I did I say it was a bad burn?
No, but it made it sound like don't do in-house financing because you're going to get burned. Like here's how it hasn't worked for me was the tone that I picked up from. So I picked that up wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about growth, and we've talked about payment options in previous seasons in the case acceptance, and I think we had an episode with Graham about this. Graham Dursley,
potentially.
Yeah. So it's a big deal. You want to make it. One way to grow your revenue is instead of doing, more patients, you do more dentistry on each patient.
Correct.
So, and maybe that could be a theme of this episode, but the finance end of it, and we'll see if we get to any of the other aspects of that.
So yeah, I think I like where you started with the overarching look at things, where it's like, well, there's two ways to grow your practice. One is more patients in your office, and the other one is increasing your production per patient. And, one thing we talk about in analytics practice management course coming up and in general with our clients is, we like to know before we do anything, which of those two things are we touching? Are we touching production per patient? Or are we touching patient flow? And, it's kind of like an analytics concept. And I think a lot of the things we've talked about to date are patient flow. And that's like, if I'm going to double, triple, quadruple the size of a practice, I'm not going to do it in the production per patient realm. I need more patients.
Okay.
So in this episode, I guess we're shifting gears to production per patient.
Okay. So that's I just want to circle back on that. I was listening to George and Matt's recent episode. You guys have had some awesome episodes on your Chit Chat Fridays.
Yeah, we got two more. When's this coming out?
In a week and a half from now.
Okay, so there should be about one more by the time this comes out on a Monday. There'll be maybe one more Friday.
Yeah, exactly. You keep calling them riffraff?
I just let Matt kite. He calls them riffraff, and then I think we call them
riffing is to like talk about something, just like or come up with random music. Just kind of like just see what happens. That's riffing. Riffraff is like the people on the streets that like you don't want near your house. Like it's like, oh, I gotta avoid the riffraff.
Yeah, we're like the guys you don't want near your practice, right?
Exactly.
We're just gonna mess it all up.
You've got a bunch of riffraff riffing over here, which is
seems solid.
I just needed to point that out. It was important. They were really good, and you guys also made fun of my podcasting style. Let me circle back here, which is what I'm doing right now.
Let's go back. You went through a lot of stuff. Let's recap it for our listeners.
Let's slow it down for everyone who's not George. So that was significant what you just said. Of if you want to make big moves in your practice,
Mhm.
you can't do it just by tweaking the per patient production.
Yes.
You need to close the back door and bring more people in the front.
Well, and I guess this is where, like you and I, Richard, when we meet dentists, sometimes we'll say like, man, that person is like a very typical dentist mentality or mindset. And one example of where that shows up is you'll see a dentist try to grow their practice by adding specialty procedures or by presenting a different type of treatment or by pushing case acceptance or any of these areas. And it's like, sure, those things will grow your practice. Those things are also pretty doctor dependent. And also, like, so production per patient is a spectrum. And the typical spectrum is like $400 on the low end per patient.
Is this per new patient or per recall?
Patient in your entire practice?
Okay.
So like if I look
per
at
year,
so if you have a practice of 2,000 patients, right? Like a very typical, maybe 2 hygienist practice. If they're on the low end of the production per patient and $400, then they're doing $800K.
Okay.
If they're on the very high end, they're doing $2 million. Right, and so like that's like a very drastic situation. I think most of our dentists that we onboard, they typically live in the 600 to 700 range. So like a 2,000 patient practice doing, roughly call it 1.2 to 1.3, like a full productive solo. That's typically where you're at.
And it's probably pretty unlikely that you happen to be the very low end of that, and then you have the ability to turn it around and get to the very high end of that.
I would say getting above 850 is really challenging. That's when it gets really, really hard.
And there's a combination of patient demographics, because if you've got like a bunch of pedo patients versus a bunch of elderly patients versus, that's going to factor into it, as well as, like you said, doctor's ability and team's ability to convert treatment, the procedure mix that you have at your disposal and what you're advertising and marketing for. And I think a lot of times people think they're going to add a procedure on their existing patients.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that doesn't work. You almost have to advertise for the new procedure. And then sometimes it comes up naturally with your existing patients.
And I would think that, so like this conversation could get really complicated really quickly. How far do we want to take this?
Well, we've already derailed completely. We're not even talking about the topic that we started on. So this is great.
Because,
let's keep going.
So, okay, let's talk about the $400 practice, right? So I think the production per patient, if we were to increase that from all the way from the bottom to the top. So like I bought my practice and I think we were in the maybe 500s, like 520, 530, somewhere in that range. And,
and just to be clear for like that one person who's taking all of this the wrong way, we're not talking about overdiagnosing. It doesn't need to be restated, but unfortunately we do have to restate it because someone might be listening to this episode first.
Like when you hear me about like
what you're about to say, I cut you off too soon.
So,
I'm sorry.
Like, so we started at 500-ish per patient. Now we're at over 1,000 per patient. And so like we've really pushed it. But I think, so the obviously first area is diagnosis, case acceptance, right? That's like the easiest way to push this number up. And second area that I would look at is actually, ironically, your recare current. So the amount of patients in your pool that are up to date on their cleanings actually has a lot to do with your production per patient.
Okay.
And it's kind of a backwards concept. But the more often those patients come in throughout the year, the more production you get per patient.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So it's the months between patients that affects that.
So like think about it. If I had a patient that came in twice per year versus
clockwork every 6 months to the dot.
If all my patients came in twice per year, that would do wonders for my production per patient, even more so than diagnosis case acceptance. So statistically what we're finding when we look at analytics is like whoever is, and like we really stress that scheduling coordinator who calls overdue recare. Because if I can bring a patient in twice in a year versus once in a year, the amount of, in my practice, it's an extra $400 that I got off of that same patient. So, it is statistically really advantageous to do that. So that's another way that you can increase that number. And I guess the ratio of new patients to recall patients. So like if you're in a startup, for example, a startup, all of their patients are new patients.
New patients, yeah.
So their production per patient is just going to be artificially higher
for the first few years.
Yeah, because you don't have a huge recare pool diluting your production per patient. So all of these things, minus what I said at the beginning, diagnosis, case acceptance, it's such a multifactorial number that has so much to do with how your practice entirely runs and a lot less to do with your, it has a lot to do with diagnosis, but it also can be very practice dependent instead of doctor dependent.
Cool. And that's good to know. And that makes it a very valuable metric to like look at and think about, and to see how is this being influenced, and from all the different aspects, what of it is, how can we improve all of these aspects just a little bit?
Yeah. Like I have an associate run practice at this point, right? I'm not really clinically involved. And so for me, I can't rely on, I don't have like owner doctor, I have 2 associates.
Right.
And so for me, I have to do it differently. And we still perform very well. It's just we have to do it in a more practice dependent way versus a doctor dependent way.
Right. No, it makes sense. Okay, so now we're dialing into case acceptance, and part of case acceptance is finance and the patient's ability to pay.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you feel like, I guess it's kind of hard, because what patient financing might do for a practice, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it might get it so that some of these bigger cases get accepted, which then skew that number that we were talking earlier. If you get a $10,000, $15,000 case, $30,000 case, all of a sudden your production per patient that month is significantly higher. And so while it might not be that like all of your patients are taking you up on these patient financing options, making sure that's baked into your practice can be a big deal. Is that fair to say, or what would you say?
You're totally right. And I think the thing that is important to distinguish, at least for me, and I really come back to doctor dependency a lot, because I think as doctors, we fatigue. And so one way to prevent fatigue and also make sure your practice can perform well during fatigue, that's inevitable, is when you have systems in your office that create the results we're looking for without dependent on you, like saying the right thing every time to the patient, or like
just landing everything perfectly.
Yeah.
The stars aligned, the patient was in a good mood, they had just been self-conscious about their smile, and all of a sudden they happen to, you know what, today I'm gonna get my teeth fixed, and then you come in and say all the right things and they go for it.
Yeah, because we're human,
right.
And we walk into operatories and we diagnose stuff and we walk out, and we're not always walking in with man, I'm really gonna close this blank.
Right.
And so I don't like to improve case acceptance by, you do coach the dentist, but there's also other ways of doing it. And I like patient financing because it's something that's a practice policy that's offered that improves case acceptance on a more sustainable basis. And that to me is like actual growth. I don't view artificially increasing your case acceptance in a short period of time when it's not sustainable as real growth. That's like artificial growth, and then it'll go back down. But like a policy in your practice that will always operate this way is going to be sustainable.
Totally.
So patient financing, I would include as one of those things, co-diagnosis as another.
Okay, cool. So you've been doing this now for how long?
Oh man. Maybe, I think honestly, my sellers had a policy for this when I bought the practice.
Cool. So it wasn't new to your team.
No. So what they used to do is when a patient had a balance, they would call that patient and then they would say, "Hey there, patient, you have a balance. How many months do you need to pay it off?"
Right.
And then the patient would give them an amount of months, and then they would charge that card for a specific amount of time. And, we had these little forms, payment authorization agreements with the patient, like a payment plan arrangement.
Right.
And that was how they did it before. It was only for patients that had a balance.
So it was like part of the collection policy rather than part of the treatment plan presentation policy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And then, one of the things so I hope it's obvious, maybe it's not, but I'm typically if there's ever a spectrum of like, this person's really conservative in the way they run their practice, very cost conscious, kind of, very by the book.
Right.
And then there's somebody who's very aggressive and, takes risks to try things out and, is trying to grow and will sort of is willing to really go for it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely as far as possible on the aggressive side.
Try things outside.
Yes.
Yeah.
So patient financing is a very perfect example of that. So I tell my patient, or I tell my team, I say, if somebody has so we have a policy in my practice, green means go. We don't say it like that, but that's the mentality I want them to have.
Right.
I want us to do as much as possible all the time.
And I think the first time you said that, like, I was like, is he talking about like their credit worthiness or whatever? You just mean money. Green means go.
No. Like green light. Like,
okay.
Everyone has the green light to offer patient financing to anybody at any time.
Okay. Cool.
Green means go. Yeah.
Okay. See, I'm glad we clarified that.
Yeah. So
I still didn't get it. Yeah.
It's A hygienist can offer it. An assistant can offer it. Anybody that works for my practice can offer patient financing.
Okay.
And we make it very simple. If their amount that they owe is under $1,500, they're on a 6-month payment plan.
Okay.
If it's above $1,500, it's 12 months.
Okay. That's it.
So if they pull up a thing, patient needs a crown, they say, well, I can't afford the crown. It's like, okay, well, we can finance it for you over 6 months because they know the amount is under $1,500. If it's like an implant or something that's more than their patient's portion is more than $1,500, my team knows, say 12 months.
Okay. So, and how are you doing this? You're doing this in-house and you're keeping track of it somehow.
Yeah, so we have, I'll put all the minutia out there for those who want to implement something like this. So we have a payment authorization form.
Okay.
And you fill out your credit card number on the form. You tell the patient, we're going to run the card 12 times for this much. And then you have them sign and agree it. And then that goes in we have like a folder we put them. And then that actually, the first thing we do is before we put in that folder, we put it into our practice management software, Dentrix. And then we run our cards. We just run the cards and they pick a day of the month that they want it run. And then Dentrix will automatically run that card on that day.
Okay.
And then it goes to their ledger and it reduces their balance.
So it's built into Dentrix.
At this time, yeah.
So there's no like crazy third-party solution required.
No, not with Dentrix G7, which we had to upgrade to. So actually, we upgraded to Dentrix for the purpose of having this feature. And then they're like, oh, well, you have to upgrade to Dentrix 7.1. So then we do. And then we're like, we still can't get this feature. And then we're like in tier 3 or 4 of their support system talking to like the guy that codes Dentrix. He's like, oh yeah, it doesn't have the feature yet. And so we updated our Dentrix. It messed up our Dexis and everything in our practice.
Do you have to pay to update?
No, it's just a hassle. Yeah. And everything changes and the computers are slow and I really hate updating. And so then months later they released the feature. We used to have to do it through a third party and then track it all and put it back on the ledgers and stuff. But now it's all through Dentrix and works well.
Cool. No, that makes it pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So my questions with this then are, you're not charging interest. It's not like, some other third party solutions that are out there. How's it gone?
That first question.
Okay.
Right. Because I signed up with a company that has the you charge the patient interest, they fill out an application, and then one of those companies that I'm sure if you're listening, you can think of a company that does something like this. And my issue with them isn't particularly the interest. I don't mind. I would charge patients interest if I could mask it and make it seem like a third party and all that stuff. But when you look at the fees that those companies charge, it's like, well, I'm not really making any interest anyway. And but then at the end of the day, it's like, I don't want the patient to sit there filling out applications, slowing us down. It's the time.
The simplicity of it.
Yeah. And so I like the simplicity and that's why I say green means go. Like we want everyone to just go. Mm-hmm. And so I tell my team, you just offer them financing. Everyone on my team can offer anybody financing. And now the thing that before treatment is done, we actually have them fill out that form.
Okay.
That's our agreement, is that they put their credit card information in there, they put the amounts, and then they sign it. And so, that's our way of making sure that we're making the process as simple and easy as possible.
Okay. And you're not doing anything fancy like you need a certain amount up front to cover you just in case, it doesn't, they change their credit card or...
We charge the first payment on the first day.
Right.
So their first of their 12 months is the date of service.
Okay.
So, that is a little bit of an upfront thing, but I don't think that's really this first month payment.
Well, and it's not complex enough where you're like, well, we need to cover our fixed costs and our lab
I don't
costs.
care about that stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it on a large scale, over 80% of my patients have insurance. So if I just do this to all my patients, 80% of the time, maybe at least, maybe 60% of the time at minimum, I'm financing to a patient who has dental insurance, and I'm guaranteed payment from their insurance. And so,
do you then, when you're financing to someone with dental insurance, do you quote them the full cost without insurance and then deduct the payment that you get back from the insurance against their balance? So then,
no.
How do you do it then?
Just their portion.
Just their portion. So you finance their portion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if Crown is $1,000, patient portion is $500.
Okay.
Then we finance $500 over 6 months, and then we go collect $500 from insurance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if the estimate's wrong, what then?
So that's actually the nice thing about this system, because they've signed saying I can charge their credit card. And we have something on our form saying that like if you have an extra balance at the end of your thing, we charge it one more time to cover that balance.
Okay.
So it's actually nice because if we have built in, if insurance messes up or something they don't pay, then the patient's already agreed to let us run their card for the entire treatment balance. We think it's going to be this, but we say that's an estimate. And so it's like, let's just say there's a $25 extra thing. Then we'll charge it the 12th month, they'll pay it off, and then we'll charge them a 13th time for $25.
Okay, cool.
So it's our way of making sure that all their balance is covered.
And it eliminates having to like track them down, like your team tracking down those particular patients where it's just a little amount after the fact.
Yeah, and it really helps. And, you know, patients aren't upset because honestly, I mean, it's on their credit card statement. They know that we charge their card every month. You know, most people don't comb through that thing. So we just get to charge the card. We have permission to do it. We told them, they signed, so we do it. Perfect. Yeah.
Cool. No, that's a great arrangement.
Yeah, it's been great. And so in terms of results, right, I really started pushing this hard about a year ago.
Okay.
And we started at financing maybe a little over a year ago, but we started with like, you know, we were doing like $5,000 a month and we track how much per month we finance out. You know, we started with like $5,000 a month we were financing out. And then my team was like getting a little weird. Like, we're financing out a lot of treatment. I'm like, no. I want more. Like, I want green means go. Like, go.
Let's do this. Yeah.
Finance.
Yeah.
You know, and every time they ask me about it, I say, green means go. Like, finance. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. And so then, you know, then we got up to 10, and then we started getting towards 20, and now we're like 25 to 30 a month we'll finance out. And then, you know, after you've been doing it for 12 months, you know, and right, I haven't been doing 25 to 30 for 12 months, but I've been doing, you know, 12 months ago, I was doing like maybe 10 to 15.
Right.
So like then you start getting all that in.
Right.
And then the cash flow situation is sort of stabilizes. But then also like think about it. So I pay associates off of adjusted production, not collections.
Right.
So like my associates produce, patient finances, they get paid.
Right.
I'm the one that waits. But my costs, you know, I mean, you could imagine what you typically pay an associate plus your hard costs, you know, like your variable costs are at most 13%. And then you pay an associate some salary. You guys kind of know what associates get paid. And then, like, so if I'm doing a crown and my insurance is paying me half, I'm kind of covered.
Right.
You know, and then the other half is just profit. And I can wait on profit.
You can be patient with that.
Yeah. So it honestly makes sense. And for me, it's, you know, our model of overhead is so much different than industry standard. Matt and I were talking about it in a recent episode of Practice Underwater where we think about it as break even. And so for me, I just want to shoot as far past my break even as possible. And this allows me to do as much dentistry as possible per appointment, right? We can tell the patient like, hey, just come in, get them both done, whatever it is, and then finance it out.
Right.
Or get it done by the end of the year and then pay for your portion next year. Or like we can have those conversations now because my team knows that we work with people and we just get it done.
And so now we still, you know, it sounds like it's been good. It's been working. Where have you gotten burned?
Yeah, so been burned once.
Okay.
So this was over COVID. And so my typical front office was not there. And we had this was a cash patient that got about $10,000 of treatment, you know, without any type of, she didn't even sign a form. We had broken systems.
I fully understand that, like, the COVID broken everything. Like, I saw someone who I took out a number 8 in the middle of COVID and grafted and made like a Essex flipper to replace that. And I was just like, I'm the only one here. I don't know how to do any of this. We'll figure it out.
Well, and it was somebody that had a lot of stuff that needed to get done. And it was like they were in pain. It was COVID. And we had an associate and assistant. And so we told them we would get it done for them, and then we would sort out, like, we have this payment arrangement for them, but, like, we hadn't trained. And it showed us, and, like, for us, you know, I talked about this, I forgot where, but, you know, every issue that happens in your practice, right, it'll show you something that you need to shore up next time. And, like, as systems break, this is a system that broke in my practice, and then post-COVID, we saw this, like, oh, whoops, this was a big, you know, amount of treatment that we shouldn't have done on this patient, so let's go ahead and shore up our system. And that's when we introduced like an accountability measure where we don't start treatment until this form is signed and given to the front office. And it was this situation that showed it off. So yeah, I'd say like $9,000, $10,000 of treatment. So if you can think about how much my costs were, let's just say they were half, you know, with paying an associate. And I collected off of that, you know, about maybe $1,000. and then I have 9 outstanding, and so I lost about 4.
Right. And I love how your model of covering overhead or covering your costs rather than worrying about an overhead percentage allow you to think about that as a $4,000 loss instead of a $9,000 loss.
Yeah, no, it's a $4,000 loss.
It feels better.
Yeah, and then so at this point we're attempting to work with the patient on, trying to it's like the credit card thing where when your credit card statement is well overdue and you're about to go bankrupt, they call you like, hey, we'll reduce your debt for the purpose of
let's figure this out.
Yeah. And so, at this point we messed up. It's our fault. My team knows. I never got mad at anybody.
Right.
Like, whoops, we'll just fix it and do it again. And I always tell them I've lost much more money on much stupider things.
Right.
That's the thing I always tell them. And then we call the patient, we try to sort it out, and we try to reduce their balance to, I think we said $3,000. And then if she pays that, then we'll just waive the rest, and then ended up losing $1,000. But, I've at this point have financed out, I currently have outstanding, 130 to 140. I've financed out almost probably more than 200K, so for me to have been burned by $4,000, it doesn't and maybe I've been burned a couple other times, but they've been in the hundreds.
Right.
This is the only $1,000
major one.
Yeah. So tops $5,000 I've lost on this. That puts me at a 97% collect rate.
Yeah. It's great.
I mean, I would take a 90% collect rate on this.
Right.
And it's still financially beneficial. It's really hard to lose at this game.
Yeah. And
when you're not paying an associate, it's even better.
Right. I was going to say, even when you're paying upfront adjusted production, this still works great for you. But yeah, going back to if it's a solo doc producing owner.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Why wouldn't you do this all the time?
I have no clue why people wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just make it super easy. Have you trained and talked about how to talk to patients about this without insulting them of do you need to finance this?
Yeah, so we say, this is your amount, period. And if they say, oh, well, I can't do it. Well, we can finance it for you for 6 months. So we always say the amount first. And then when we hear an objection, or if they're like, okay, then it's cool. If they're like, wow, I got to go, talk to my blank, that's a lot of money. Usually they'll bring up a money concern if the money is the concern. And then my team knows to offer that. And we incentivize our entire team almost in some capacity around this, around not financing, but case acceptance or treatment accepted or one of those things. And so it's in their best interest financially to close that case. So, we try to do that.
And I love coming at this from the aspect of you're not trying to squeeze a little bit of more money out of the patient. It's you're trying to find a way for them to get the work that they need done. And you are being flexible in how you collect payments so that they can not delay treatment. They can wait rather than waiting for insurance to turn over next year to get the needed work that they need done. Just get it done now and prevent it from being worse. So, when people think of patient financing, I think sometimes it gets a bad rap of
well, because it comes with a 15% interest rate normally.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I get why it would get a bad rap in that department, you know?
Right. But in your case, it's no, we're just trying to be flexible so that you can get your teeth taken care of.
Yeah. And look, that's the whole part of this conversation that got missed.
Yeah.
Is we're talking about the analytical side of it and growing your practice and all that stuff. Cool. But when I introduced this to my staff, my office manager was like, wow, this is such a great service.
Yeah.
It's I remember back when I was younger, I could have really used stuff like this offered by businesses, because she remembers what it was like to, be, kind of paycheck to paycheck and not have the funds to get something done.
Right.
Or do something that she wants to do. Some people value it. They just can't pay for it.
Right. And I remember being a undergraduate college student. I think I was pre-dental at this point, and I had a failing root canal. I was in pain. It would, every time I got sick or every time I was sleep deprived, it would kind of ache and throb. What number was it? It's 14. And I went to the endodontist, and he was like, well, I can cut through the crown and do the retreat, and you're going to have to probably get that crown redone. Or I can do the apico. And the apico was cheaper than the retreatment.
Oh, man.
Retreatment plus crown.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, let's just do the apico.
Oh, man.
So I did the apico because I was in college. I didn't have a great income, and this was what was available. If he had then taken the time to explain, if there was any missed anatomy, which there was no MB2 done on this tooth. because I had it retreated later. I mean, essentially, he's putting they put it like they call it a trash can lid on the trash can. Like you've got an infected tooth, you're just putting a lid on the top of it by doing the apico. So it later started to hurt in residency, and I had an endodontist go through and
it's not like one of the most painful procedures.
An apico?
Yeah. The post-op on those?
Post-op kind of sucked, but I mean, I think wisdom teeth are worse.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, that's like I don't know.
It's a surgery. It's invasive.
It's not a fun procedure to get.
No, totally. So, it's like, that's the kind of thing where when patients are making decisions based on the finances, whereas there actually is a better treatment option for that tooth and for them long term that maybe would cost a little bit more, having these options so that you can then say, listen, if it were me, this is what I would do. If finances are the issue, we've got a way to spread this out. We can do it over 12 months. We can do it over 6 months, blah, blah, blah.
And the thing that I want to double and triple emphasize to our audience here is, I mean, this is an aggressive strategy. So whenever you do something aggressive, you have to have a strong policy behind it, right? We have a system of doing it. So it's with AR, you have to be very careful and you have to have systems in place with AR or else it can get out of control really quickly. And so in our case, we have that form that gets filled out, signed, handed to my treatment coordinator, input into Dentrix, and that's it. And like that's really important. And I think early on we were sloppier with it and it wasn't a good thing. And so I think there's this balance between you pick your AR policies and then you make sure they're run and that system is really tight. I just like more aggressive AR policies.
Right.
Because they push growth.
Absolutely. Did you look at any other solutions other than Dentrix 7.1 post update to do this?
I just like that because it's integrated into the ledger.
Yeah.
So when you run the card, it also deducts their balance and everything's done and it's automated. Like it just a little pop-up happens, my office manager clicks check mark and then it goes like check, 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 check. All the cards were run successfully and then we go on. If there's an X, then she calls the patient, gets the updated card information and then runs it.
I guess I'm wondering if Open Dental has this. We'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm switching, so I would like to know as well.
Yeah.
When we think about growth, I think a lot of people how many people are like, well, production doesn't matter. It's all about collections. Like, that's like the thing that everyone says. And it's like, yeah, but when I'm trying to think about growing my practice, thinking about collections is not a very helpful thought.
Right.
Because that's where we get all scarce minded and we think about the people that are not paying us and we get all worried about our overhead. And none of those thoughts help us grow our practice. And so for my team, I always want them thinking about production. And I know if I have a solid AR process behind my production, then I'll collect. I don't want my team worrying about that. I have 2 people in my office that are worried about collections. I have an insurance coordinator and an office manager. Everyone else is focused on production. And I think, so it's I talk about adjusted production. I pay associates off of adjusted production. Everything is off of adjusted production because that's where you can grow your practice. And so financing options help adjusted production. Doing them properly will ensure that you don't get burned on collections.
Right.
But I think in this whole season, if we're talking about collections policies to grow your practice, don't listen to us. This is the wrong show. We're the wrong people, and that's not a way to grow.
Right.
That's a way to shrink.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you're gonna keep pushing past break even, getting a little bit less collectible production, and maybe having a smaller collections rate on that last piece, will still much more profitable than not having that last piece at all. So, I mean, in every way that you look at this, and think about it, you go to Best Buy, it's 12 months interest-free financing on a TV. You go everywhere, every place does this now. They've all figured out the same thing.
People buy more crap when they can spread it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's becoming a consumer expectation too.
Yeah. And there are also people, because some people might think I'm only, especially when it had a 15% interest rate on it, there's a certain segment of the population you're I don't want to insult them. I don't want to bring this up because I think that they need this. Whereas when it's zero interest, there's that same segment of the population who has the credit worthiness and doesn't need a 15% interest rate finance company. They see the value in zero interest. There's a certain segment of people who are oh, sweet. That's great. That's better than a credit card. That's better than anything else. And so even if I don't need that, I could pay cash for that. It can be of value to those people as well.
Yeah, and we just don't talk about it unless we get the money concern.
Right.
That's our kind of our way of
not insulting people. Yeah.
Yeah, But if you're like, oh man, I don't know if I can afford that right now, I'm like, oh well, we can spread it over 6 months for you. I'm like, okay, sure.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's just something nice to have. It's kind of like in-house membership plans. It's not a big deal. You're not going to explode your practice this way,
Right.
but it's just a nice option.
Yeah. One more little tweak.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not a big tweak, to be clear.
No.
It's not a driver of growth in a major way. It's a uptick.
Right. And me being my most aggressive with this policy, 10% of our production is getting financed.
Yeah.
But then if you think about it, right, that's 10% of my production. Let's just say half of that is money I'm going to collect from insurance afterwards. So that's like 20%.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty sizable.
That's great.
Yeah. But like we really push that hard.
That's cool. And I think you have to go, if you're going to do this isn't like this thing that occasionally ever, this is, you got to be all in. Green means go.
Yeah. And keys to simplicity.
Yeah.
Like your whole team has to understand.
Simple for the team, simple for the patient.
Exactly.
Simple in the software.
You trust everyone. And the biggest key to this is you don't ever get mad at your team if something doesn't go well.
Mm.
Because that means
We'll undo all the positive work.
All the green means go is gone if you get mad at them once.
Green means go until it doesn't, so I'm going to be hesitant.
Yeah. So then there'll be, no, everyone gets it.
Cool. This was great. This is not like some, vision-changing, life-changing episode, but this is another example of a small tweak in growth.
Yeah.
I loved it. And thank you for the update and sharing kind of how you're doing it. If you guys like George on this microphone, let him know.
Don't send me audio
gear. Yeah, no, he needs. I would build a tent for you, George, to make your audio better.
I know you said that, and I said I will not accept a tent.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting in a tent right now.
I'm technically in the tent.
Yeah, I'm outside of the tent, but I mean,
you sound great. Yeah, it's worth it. Okay, this has been the Shared Practices Podcast.
Thanks everyone.
Awesome.